What's up, guys? Today I'm going to learn how to install some coilovers on an 11th gen Civic. We're going to use these Rev9 coilovers and we're installing it on this sport sedan model. This will be my first time working on an 11th gen. These coilovers look similar to some 8th and 9th gen suspension that I've installed before on cars. Have the full bodied coil in the front, and the rear you have the shock or strut, whatever you may call it, and the independent coil. Can't imagine it being any different or much different than those previous installs. So we're going to start here on the driver's side and see if we can get this front one installed first. The first step is a given. Get the car supported using your jack stands and remove the wheel from the vehicle. Now, just under first impression, this does look similar to, I can't remember if it's 8th or 9th gen. It has the sway bar end link up here, which will get removed. We'll probably remove this line right here just to give us a little bit of space. Same with a 12mm here. And everything else looks pretty much the same. You have the, on the 8th and 9th gen, I believe, you have 2 bolts, though, which attach from the knuckle to the shock. This one only has 1 back here. Let's see how we can get this removed and put on. First thing I'm going to start with is remove the 14mm nut for the end link. I left it under compression, that way it was easier to remove. It kind of kept it in place. Now I'm going to jack it up. Once you do that, you'll kind of stretch it out and you can just push it right out. Next, I'm going to remove this 12mm bolt, and using some needle nose pliers, we're going to get this line pushed out also. We just want to remove any sort of pressure that pulling the knuckle away from the shock might create. Also, you can slide this is the ABS line away from here, just by pulling it. Next, I'm going to pull out this 17mm bolt from the knuckle. And now we're going to try to remove the shock by getting all 3 of these 14mm nuts removed here. This one you do not need to remove, and I'll show you why in a moment. After removing 2 of the nuts, I left the 3rd one on. I wanted to see how far the shock comes down in relation to the knuckle, and it's still like halfway in there. I don't know if I'll be able to push it down any farther. I may actually have to remove the knuckle. Can't get it out. We'll try. See if maybe if I loosen that top one, it'll shoot a different angle. So right now I think it's at a weird angle where it's actually catching here and it's stopping it from sliding down. I'll let you know what I figure out. Okay, after fiddling around, there's no way that this shock is going to slide up outside of the knuckle. It's just far too deep. I went ahead and removed the 36mm wheel spindle nut. I removed these 3 17mm nuts. These go on the bottom. So that way I'm going to push the knuckle in and then pull the whole knuckle away. I'm going to push the axle in, and pull the knuckle away from it. That way hopefully I can get enough room to slide that down a little bit more. I think what I'll need to do is push the shock back up, attach it with one of the nuts so it holds in place, because I don't want it falling. It'll be easier if I get it separated. And that should let me get that removed. Okay, so here it's all removed. I put 1 nut back in, wanted to pull it up, and then you should, yeah, just push on the LCA, get it away from the knuckle. With your thumb, you can push that out. That's the axle. We're gonna have that free, and we have a lot more room. Well, there you go. Let's make sure we support. Make sure you always support your knuckle, because we don't want to destroy any of these lines, and that's one of the whole reasons I gave slack to those in the meantime. But now we can just remove this 1 nut and get this guy out. Okay, and as you saw me get the old suspension removed, I tried fitting in the new coilover, but like this sleeve, it is not fitting at all. It's not even close. And And I was talking to a friend that's here right now. He owns Civic Type R, and he's saying there's a tool that, like a little socket you put in here and you spin it and it spreads these out. I don't know if that's something necessary for this. I'm feeling like no, because the stock ones fit perfectly fine. These are reminiscent of all the Golden Air Hondas. They have that little notch in the back of the shock, which that 17mm bolt tightens. This one has it also. You can see it right there, but it's not even close. I'm just gonna probably talk to the owner. We're just gonna grind it down, get it to fit, and see if we can slide these suckers in there. All right, so after a bunch of grinding, I'm gonna get it to the point where I think it should fit. Especially, like that tool my homie was telling me about, that you need to spread this out. I don't know, I feel like if the stock one fits with this kind of clearance as well, like I would imagine it'd be a pain in the butt to get it out, but maybe that tool can help you if you don't have a grinder. But I now got these in there. If you live in a state that has a lot more moisture than us, we live in the desert, so rust and corrosion really isn't an issue at all. You may want to go ahead and respray the little cup itself. That way you can get all this back to black as well. So with that in there, I'll probably go ahead and just put this bolt in to hold it in place. It has that little notch which holds the cup in the correct orientation. I think I'm going to spin the coilover back onto it and then use the jack to lift it and kind of have it in position. Whatever may work best for you. I ended up off camera taking off the brake caliper because I wanted to be able to see it a little better and just test fitting it back and forth for fitment. But you don't have to remove the caliper if you were just grinding it down, getting that fit. Got to figure out a way to get this all put back together. Let me put mine back together and I'll tell you what worked best for me. I should be okay like that. Okay. So it's a little bit of a struggle to try to get the axle back in. It's my first time ever attempting to do so. I should probably be a little easier on the opposite side. But now I can bolt up that 17mm that'll hold the knuckle to the coilover. And I can just work on putting all these back on, put my ABS sensor line back on, make sure the caliper bolts are tight, clean off any of these little fingerprints, and then tighten up your 3 on the bottom. So when I was lining it up, I just put 1 on here. That way it held it in place. I didn't want it to fall. And of course you can tighten up the last 3 nuts once you finish up all of this. Okay, so everything kind of went on as it should have. No issues there. Now that it's lowered, obviously this is going to be higher. Tip, put your jack underneath the end of the sway bar and lift from there to get it lined up. And feed that guy in. I'm gonna tighten it up. Now this has an Allen, you can put an Allen wrench in there and a regular wrench to tighten it. Let me see if since I'm gonna loosen it up, it's gonna pull the tension on it. Let's see if I can just tighten it now with an electric ratchet. Yeah, that seemed to work great. Okay. Everything on this side is finished up. I'm gonna leave it here for the height. That way we can kind of see where it's at when we put the wheels back on and adjust everything accordingly once it's on the ground. But small overview of the front, not too difficult. Grinding could be a pain in the butt if you don't have a decent grinder, but it just takes a little bit of time to get there. But that was pretty much the hardest part about putting on the front. Let's finish this up. I'm gonna finish up the passenger side and then make my way to the back soon. So the learning curve was shortened dramatically on the passenger side. Most difficult part again was just grinding down the cup, but once we had that finished off, we got this one installed really quickly. Now when doing that, I did not have to take off the caliper or anything on this side. I just did it because I was trying to work with fitment, but you don't have to do that. You can cut that portion out. I just left it in there. Was able to slide it in and out easily once I had it to a point where it was grinded down enough. But the passenger side is done and we can finally move on to the rear. Here's a look at the front after kind of just leaving it where it was at. There was maybe like an inch between the locking ring and the bottom of the coilover rings. I don't know if we may need to raise it a little bit. We are putting some different wheels and tires. We'll do that at the end of the video. But once we get those on and the width, we're just gonna make sure that's a little bit of room. We don't want to be too close to being slammed, but just a nice ride height. So now we're moving on to the back, and after looking at it initially, the back looks much easier. You have the shock, you have the spring. I think I'm gonna start with taking off the 17 bolt right here, which connects the LCA to the knuckle. That'll allow me to get to this bolt here, which holds the shock. We may end up needing to take off this bolt, which looks like an end-link, if the arm doesn't go down far enough. Usually when you have the sway bar connected, obviously it's not gonna allow me to push the arm down. But once I have this off, I may be able to push it down far enough. If I can just pull the coil down around this little, it's a little nipple on the car. It's on the body of the car, which holds it in place. Might be able to just get it off there, but we're gonna get started and see if this one goes pretty easily. So I removed the 17 bolt. Didn't have enough room. It still was too compressed because it was attached to the sway bar. And I went ahead and removed the 12mm bolt, and now obviously you can just push this down and we can get that spring out. Next, I went ahead and removed 17mm for the back of the shock that connects to the knuckle. Now on this model it's a little tricky. It fooled me at first. I had pulled off some of the clips trying to get back here to the panel. I even went to the front, but there is no access to it. Looked up in there, there is two 12mm bolts which hold that assembly to the body. I went ahead and removed them already. Now we should be able to get it removed. Let's Okay, so I was getting the rear shocks ready, and from my experience in the past, we would reuse old bump stops. Now this particular set, it has a bump stop inside here. I don't know if you can see a little white piece. The bump stop is in here. Shocks are actually reversed the way they mount, where on this part you have the piston on the very top, these shocks you have the piston on the bottom, and then of course you have the cup which you can adjust up or down. I think you're going to do that depending on how much you adjust the coil, because this also has the threaded body on it. So obviously if you lower that, you'll probably want to lower this just to help keep the ride quality a little bit better. We just need to take off this top hat. We're going to swap this over. Has a 14mm nut and then a hex head socket. It's probably like a 4mm hex head socket. Get that swapped over to this, and then we should be able to reinstall. Let me see if we can get this swapped over very quickly. It was actually a 5mm hex head socket I used. 14mm nut. Came off easily. There's no compression on it with a spring, such as a traditional shock and spring combo. And then I just used my rubber mallet, hit it a couple times, and off came the top hat. And it looks like we're just going to install this top hat onto the new shock, and it has a new supplied nut. If you want to use that one, you can. I think the original one's still same thread pitch. You can use the original one if you'd like to do that. Also, it's your call. I went ahead and used the original nut just because it's a 14 compared to the 15. I made it a little bit shorter because obviously we're going to lower the car. If I need to lower it more, I can. There's still plenty of room here where it's showing thread. So that way, I think that's the hole for letting you know you can't go any lower for the shock inside of the cup. Otherwise it becomes unsafe, but there's still thread, all the way thread showing. If I need to go down a little more, I can, but we're gonna install it just like that. So it should be pretty easy. Just bolt up the top two, get it hanging there in place. If you need help lifting the knuckle, you can use your jack underneath it, but it's pretty flexible with just your hand. You may be able to move it up and down, get that one attached. Trickiest part's probably just going to be getting this one back on. I think we're going to use the jack to put pressure onto this and push it back up to the knuckle. But I'm going to start with the top, and I'll finish it up and let you know how it goes. First, I just kind of fed it into place, and I just slid the shock onto the knuckle. That way it actually helps hold it up while I get those two 12mm bolts installed. Yeah, that was actually the easiest method of doing that. The knuckle had like a little dowel pin already sticking out, so the shock just kind of sat onto it, and I was able to easily put the bolt in. Then these just kind of spinning, lining them up, and this one's done. The adjustment is still left it loose, so if we need to adjust it, we can. I don't know if we can just spin the body. No. I guess you'll have to, since you remove those two 12s. No, I'm lying. We could probably just pop this off and then spin the whole body of the coilover. Anyway, I'm just trying to figure out how we spin it to adjust it. I'll figure that out once we kind of get it all completed and I am adjusting the suspension. Okay, I was already right here. You can actually just grab the body and say, for instance, if I spin it this way, you'll see it go up. You can just grab by the body and spin it that way, up or down, depending on what you need to do and how you want your car to be sitting. So pretty easy to get that adjusted because everything is completely tight right now, but you're still able to do that to adjust it. So we're just gonna leave that alone. So I pulled the rubber isolator off the bottom of the spring. The top one I had already put on the new spring for the coil. I'm just gonna leave it in here. I was thinking about cutting these little pieces off, but you know, just in case we ever go back, I think they could still potentially be saved. The reason I want to do that is when we put the cup in here, I think it'll help alleviate any noise. Once it's obviously under compression, it's gonna be nice and tight. If I leave it just metal on metal, it's probably gonna rattle around and might make noise over bumps, and we're trying to make sure we don't have any of that. So you could cut off these little pieces if you wanted to. There's a little piece over here, but I'm just gonna leave them on and let the coilover cup kind of just surround it and push it down. So next, with being able to remove the arm up and down, it was easy to get the sway bar end link in. Get it in, tighten it a little bit, but leave some space. We're gonna tighten it completely when it's under its own weight. What I'll do is put the jack up under here. We don't want to over flex any of these bushings prematurely and wear them out, so that's why I left that one a little loose. The coil's in here. Obviously just fell to the side. What I'm gonna do next is just get the jack, push up here, and tighten the 17 up a little bit, and then I'll jack the whole suspension up, remove the weight, and then I will tighten this 17 and this 12 completely. And now we're just gonna lift I use the jack to help get that bolt in for the knuckle and the LCA. The car's now lifted off of the jack stand, so it's at full droop. You can go ahead and tighten up the 17 and the 12. And we'll do the sway bar end link also. Alright, and this side is done for now. One thing that's cool is that these front coilovers, the spanner wrench is pretty small. It doesn't take a whole lot of room compared to some of the older ones. This is a rear one, it looks like. I was using it on the rear right now. This little one doesn't take up a whole lot of room. It's easy to grab and spin this with this miniature wrench. You maybe have a little bit of room with the tire still on. I just removed it anyway. I didn't have it torqued down, and I want to check height before I completely tightened up everything. So at this point you want to make sure you tighten up all of your locking collars and your perches as well. Alright guys, and there we are, finished up. Did a lot of adjustments to the coilovers to try to get it at a ride height that he liked. Plus, I don't know if they'll settle a little bit. We wanted to leave a little bit of room just for settling, and it is a daily driver, but we will see if it does, and we can always make some adjustments then. Left a little bit of room off the front. It seems to be the front is as low as it can go without me messing with the preload. The shock itself, the coilover was all the way bottomed out in the cup, so that is as low as we can go in the front. And there's a minimal gap. Granted, it's a small tire. These are an 18 by 9.5 rotor slipstream plus 38 offset, and you're looking at a 255/35 tire on these. So there's a little bit of a stretch for that, but it looks like it fits and it fills the wheel well so much better. This car looking, I like the white infinitely better than the black wheels, especially on a daily. It's gonna be harder to keep clean, but they won't be that difficult because they're new wheels. Just clean them as needed. Looks nice. Back looks like it's a little bit higher. I had it set too low for a moment, and then I went in and adjusted it. We're gonna leave it here also, just so it can potentially settle, but looks dope. Here's this one actually, there's a little bit of poke. Luckily, the fenders on these cars, like there isn't anything there already. It's not nothing that sticks out like all the Golden Air Hondas we're used to. Should tuck in there. We're gonna see if it does. Potentially maybe raise it if he needs to. I don't think it's going to. It looks like it's gonna naturally just tuck in there, but looks really cool. I like the way the car looks a lot better now, comparatively. And then here on the driver's side, just a small glance as well. Ride height, maybe make some adjustments in the future. Overall, I don't know how these coilovers ride, but you're more than welcome to look up the owner's Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, I have made a couple posts of his car. I can always tell you who he is. He can give you some more information on how it rides in the future. Maybe he'll respond in the comments here, but we'll see. He daily drives it. This car only has 4,700 miles on it right now. Kind of need to see how many he puts on it and if they last. Hopefully they do last. I had never had any experience with this brand of coilovers before. Kind of annoyed that I had to grind the cups. That's not an ideal thing I want to do. It just took me, I spent like a solid 2 hours grinding down both cups. Granted, that tool that my friend was telling me about for the CTRs that you put in there and it kind of opens up the knuckle a little bit. It doesn't seem like, I personally feel like it shouldn't be necessary. The stock ones slid in and out of this knuckle perfectly fine. I feel like an aftermarket replacement should do exactly the same. There shouldn't be an extra tool needed to spread the knuckle out more. It just doesn't seem appropriate. Honestly, it feels like if it spreads the knuckle out too much, that bolt that goes through, it almost feels like it's not going to be at the correct angle. Personally, that's what I think. I don't know. there wasn't any instructions in the box, but that's the only thing I found annoying about these coilovers. Now, whether or not they last is another story, and we'll find out, but hope you guys learned something new. I did, and it really wasn't that difficult of a job. Had I not had to do the grinding, I could have knocked this all out in one day, but just the time it took to do the grinding kind of wore me down. And it's hot, it's summertime already, 100 degrees. It actually was 105 today when I finished this. So it's a little tough, and it just tests your patience, and your energy level just isn't there. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you guys soon. Take care.